In this video, I want to talk about this topic that what I would do if I wanted to start all over again from scratch. Um, which language I would choose if I want to start all over again, which framework basically. Over the past, let's say 5 or 10 years, I've been working with all sorts of languages. Basically, professionally, I started working around 5 years ago. But before that, since 10 years ago, I started, even when I was 15, actually, I started using, I remember Pascal as the first language. And then I moved to Visual Basic during high school, which was really interactive. It was really amazing that you can basically create all sorts of Windows application and software really easily with Visual Basic. Just drag and drop the menus and buttons you want and just write a really minimal script behind the scene. But it was just for myself. It wasn't really something amazing or professional. It was really simple. And then I became more interested in this sort of programming, because I used to work with also other languages, other softwares like Flash, Adobe Flash, to create some games, or even using Game Maker to create some personal games. But then I became more interested in programming in that sense. And I started using, became a bit familiar with HTML, CSS, not that much. But when I started my basically bachelor studies, I started using C. I remember that as the very professional language, as the base language for everything I was doing during that time. And it was basically related to programming microcontrollers and writing some scripts for working with modules, electronic modules, and these sort of things basically related to electronics. So C was a really great language during that time to program microcontrollers basically. And I became more interested in basically Android applications. So I started using Android Studio. I think it was 12 years ago when I first started using Android Studio. It wasn't Android Studio exactly that time. It was basically some libraries for Android. You needed to download other basically tools and combine it together to come up with the environment for developing Android applications. But it wasn't really easy to do that during that time. These days, it's really easy. You just need to, I'm not quite sure. It's been a while that I haven't used Android Studio, but I think it's the same still. You just need to download the studio and everything you need is already there. Anyway, so then after that, I'm not a professional developer yet. I'm still a really beginner during that time. Then during my master's studies, I became really interested in machine learning. So I started using MATLAB, and as the core language, as the basic language, because MATLAB is basically using for doing research. And it is recommended that if you want to do a paper, if you want to write some algorithms, it's better to do it with MATLAB because it's really easy. It has the interface you need. But after a while, I understood that this is not a good programming language for the industry, and if you want to be really professional, if you want to find a job, actual job. So it's not really, it doesn't make sense to use MATLAB. So I started using Python and I started learning Python. It was around, I'm not quite sure, 7 years ago, probably. And then it was the time that after working with a couple of machine learning modules, I started using Python as web development, for the web development, as the web development basically programming language, alongside with Django as the framework. And this was the story, basically, how my path evolved during time to be a developer and a web developer. And I've been in different positions: machine learning engineer, data scientist, web developer. But for the past maybe 3 or 5 years, I've been doing mostly web development and stuff related to that. I told you this story to see how actually I came to this conclusion, why I think that these languages that I'm going to tell you are better at this time. So let me answer the very first question I asked. So what is the best language if I want to choose all over again? It depends on what you want to do. If the trends stay like this for the next 5 or 10 years, so this can be true. But the thing is that technologies are gonna be different 5 years or 10 years from now. And every day we see new technology, new framework, new language even. And it makes it really difficult to stick to one language. But we want to invest on that. We want to spend our times on, learning a programming language, work with that, find a job with that. And we don't want to waste our time basically learning new languages every day. So based on the trends I see, it's going to be really the same for the next 5 or 10 years, I think. So I think there is, I want to divide it into 3 categories. The first category is basically graphics, 3D rendering, and gaming. So if you want to be a game developer, I highly suggest that you start learning C and the family around C++ and C#. And basically, Unity is the tool you need to use these days to create all sorts of 3D games or even 2D games, or even if you want to just render some 3D graphics, Unity is a good place to start. But I believe that I'm not professional in that area. I just read it somewhere, but I suggest that you learn C++ or C# as the base language. If you want to be a data scientist or a machine learning engineer or basically a data engineer or data analyst, all of these are pretty much in the same category, I think. You can put it all of them in the same category. So if you see yourself in 5 years or 10 years in these industries, as a machine learning engineer or a data scientist, I highly suggest that you start working with Python and you start learning Python. A lot of people suggest other languages, but I think based on what I've seen over the past few years, Python, has been really great so far. And I think it will be the same for the next 5 or even 10 years. And I'm pretty sure Python is a good start. And I think you need to stick to one basic language, to one main language as your major, and then learn 1 or 2 other languages as the side. This is what I've been struggling really badly over the past few years, because I'm not a guy who wants to stick to one language. I I always want to discover new things, new tools, new frameworks. So I jump from one language to another, and to some extent, it's not really good practice, and I don't recommend it. So if you want to choose a language, choose a path, please go with one language first, learn it, master it, and then, as a side, learn something else. But have a basic core major language for yourself and stick to that. This is the most important advice I have for you. So Python is a good start. Then after that, you can start learning C++, especially for computer vision things, or maybe Lisp, maybe Scala, or Julia these days is really popular. There are a lot of languages for machine learning and data science, but I highly recommend that you start with Python and stick to Python. And I've been using Python for different things, machine learning, for web development, and I really like Python, and basically it's my main language. But for the web development, even though that you can use Python for web development with framework like Django, which is really great, Django is really professional, is really advanced. But if you want to be in the web development world, if you want to be a developer, whether it's front-end or back-end or full stack developer, doesn't matter. If you want to start working as a developer, I highly suggest that you start with JavaScript. And in a minute, we'll explain to you why JS. So basically in the web development, or in general in the full stack development area, we have different categories. So we have backend development, front-end development, we have iOS and Android development. So you need to create all sorts of applications for all sorts of devices. If you want to go the regular path, you need to use the particular language for each device and each platform. For instance, if you use Python as the backend, you can't use it for the frontend. You need to use JavaScript again for the frontend. So, but with JavaScript, the good point is that you can cover all these areas, and this is how you can do it. So first learn JavaScript, vanilla JavaScript, that you can basically use it with your browser. You don't need anything else to start using JavaScript learning it. With browser, Chrome or Firefox, you can just compile a JS script. That's the start. And then after that, after learning JavaScript, you need to start using some kind of frameworks for the front end, like React.js or AngularJS or Vue.js. I highly recommend that you start using React.js, which is really popular and is supported by Facebook, and there is a good community with that, and there is a lot of jobs out there for that, for a React.js developer. And after that, with React.js, you can create the front end. Now for the backend side, you need to start learning Node.js. Node.js basically is the same thing as JS, but it can be run on the server, so you can use it for the backend. And usually we use as developers, we use Express.js for the framework for the backend, but it depends. So it starts with JavaScript, but we have all sorts of tools. We have React.js for frontend. We have Node.js for the backend. But the core thing here is JS. So learn JS. And then we have TypeScript, which is basically the same as JavaScript, but it has some advanced, functionality like types. Then after that, you see the whole ecosystem here. You see we have a lot of tools around JavaScript. And basically, after that, for Android or iOS application development, you can use React Native, which is different from React.js. But it's again based on JavaScript. So see, if you learn JavaScript, after that, step by step, you can learn other tools which are related and based on JavaScript. And you can create, basically after a couple of years learning all these tools, you can be a full stack developer only by knowing only one language. That is amazing. That is amazing. So if I wanted to start all over again, if I want to be just a developer, a full stack developer, I would start with JavaScript. But because I wanted to be in all these industries and roles, I never got the chance to choose only JavaScript. I work with PHP, work with Python, work with JavaScript. So, but the problem is that I can't find the time to master one of these, and I'm continuously jumping from one branch to another, one language to another. So this was my experience. I wanted to share with you how you can use this information in a good way and, well, basically prepare yourself for your career. Thank you for watching this video. I hope I see you in another video. Bye-bye.